Hey friends, and welcome to another PunkRockRadar video. Today's topic, our top 10 ska albums, but Lewis and John, I don't know about you, but I like my ska like I like my men. Horny. Anyways, it's time to pick it up, pick it up, and pick it up.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Punk Rock Radar. Like Karina said, we are doing ska punk today. It's part of our Skalidays celebration. We're each going to go through our 10 favorite ska or ska punk albums. Karina and I are going to do like a rookies and veterans type deal. We're going to do 5 older records or older bands and 5 newer bands. Lewis is going to do Ska-core versus traditional ska. So Karina, how you feeling about your list today?
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling positive. I mean, I have a few knowns and probably unknowns, oldies and newies, so it's kind of good.
All right, and Lewis, how did your list shake out?
I'm liking it. I'm feeling pretty positive. This early in the morning, I don't get real horny. It's more about the core for me at this point. So I would definitely be having a Ska-core morning.
All right, well, let's get straight into it. Karina, if you want to walk us through your first pick of your favorite ska punk albums, go for it.
Well, my first pick shouldn't be a surprise because it is Streetlight Manifesto, as usual. And it's a classic, and the songs that I would suggest listening to is We Will Fall Together and Somewhere in the In-Between.
All right, Lewis, you like this one too, right?
Yeah, I like Streetlight. Sorry if you heard some background noise there. I think my cat just knocked down a mountain of Tupperware, which I'll have to clean up in a little bit. So
I heard that too. I was like, did that come from one of you guys or me?
And then he ran away, so I knew he got into some shenanigans. So
you had a love when the love had you, and nothing mattered. You were fine.
All right, well, Lewis, what do you got first?
All right, so for my the second pick overall, my first pick is going to be Real Big Fish's Why Do They Rock So Hard? So depending on when these came out, we covered this one on the Real Big Fish list. This was my S tier. It's from 1998, and I think the definitive Real Big Fish album. A lot of memories about this one. I think I got this in middle school, and I've owned that CD ever since until now. It's buried in storage, but I pretty much can't recommend any specific song in here because I like most of them. I think if I had to say my 2 favorites are The Setup and Thank You for Moshing right in the middle there. So 2 that I definitely think of for Real Big Fish. So that is my number 1 pick.
I want you, and you want me too.
Nice, yeah. I think that was my S tier. Like you said, we're doing these all like pretty back to back, but I'll go into mine now, and I think I got a weird pick. I already have it up there, so I'm doing Ballyhoo and Detonate. And Ballyhoo, awesome band. If you guys don't know them, from Maryland, they've been kicking like 30 years now. This is my favorite record by them. I think this is like a great starting point for people who don't really listen to a ton of ska, because like it hits like all the different aspects of it. Like on the back end, like if you're into like that beachy slow ska, Mind Over Matter is a great song. It's got like faster ska punk, pop punk style tracks like Maryland Summer, Gas Station Burrito. And then if you're like me and you're an introvert and you don't like doing anything, I don't want to go. This is my soundtrack for when I have to go to my in-laws' house. Overall, awesome album. If you don't know Ballyhoo, this is a great starting point. This is going to be my first pick. One of my favorite albums of the last 5 to 10 years. So definitely go check it out.
So here comes another Maryland summer.
If you're not familiar with these guys, but I'll kick it back to you, Karina. What do you got next?
I have a Danish band called Frelo. They aren't going anymore, and they only made this one album, but it's amazing, and and you can hear it's Danish. So the songs I suggest from that one is Friday Night, because that is one of the songs I have the fondest memories from. That's a story for another day. People got hurt. And Lady Friend, because I think it's so cute, the song.
So when you say like people got hurt in Danish songs, you know where my head is going.
I know.
I'm thinking like
Vikings.
Uhtred Ragnarsson, like wielding like an axe at people. So, well, you'll have to tell that story in one of these episodes. But yeah, these guys are not on Spotify. I couldn't find anything for them, but we did manage to find a clip that we're going to play. But yeah, I've never heard them before.
And it's a Friday night. Nothing alright. I got nothing.
But Lewis, what is you heard of it?
I was going to ask. Well, no, I was going to ask, do they sing in Danish or English?
English.
Okay, I was wondering if it was like a Millencolin situation. So they do the same thing. And then, when I was young and I first saw Millencolin, I saw him performed and the lead singer did most of the crowd work. Then the guitarist talked and I was like, this man has a weak handle on English at best. So that's when I knew something was awry. So, okay.
All right, what do you got next, Lewis?
All right, so for my number 2 pick is 40 Ounce of Freedom by every bro on the beach's favorite band, Sublime. So Sublime, this album specifically is one of the few albums that I remember getting really young. I think I scammed Columbia House, the CD thing. I used to have fake names and then I would get the free CDs and never pay for them, and this was certainly one of them. And I just, because I got it first because I just liked the cover and I had no idea what it was. And then it became one of my favorite albums of all time. It's not my favorite Sublime album. That goes to the self-titled. I think that one's a masterpiece, but this one is super strong. From 92, has a little bit more ska in it, and just amazing overall. My recommended one on this is Don't Push, but pretty much any song on this album is good to get down to. So that is my number 2.
You know what I do? I point that shit straight at the sky and shoot heaven on down for you.
So, Lewis, I had this too from the Columbia House or BMG. Is this the original cover? This isn't the one I had. Do you
Which
know?
cover did you have? That's the original one I had, yeah.
Mine was like, I feel like it was like orange and green on the cover. I could be wrong. Like you're definitely a way bigger Sublime fan than me, but I always like the title track on this one.
Oh yeah, it's great. Win from Iruka. Yeah, I don't know about it might have been some like type of other album art. They had so many like independent releases and other smaller releases. Like they have that whole discography booklet that came out. So I don't know, but maybe it is.
All right, so I'm gonna go straight into my next one here. This is my first like newer band I'm gonna do. This album had just come out this year. This is Joker's Republic. They're from North Jersey, Essex County, so Bloomfield represent. And I've got some lofty comparisons for this. This reminds me a ton of Less Than Jake and Green Day. Definitely like Losing Streak, Hello Rockview era. Less Than Jake is what I hear from this. And spoiler alert, guys, this is going to be on my best of 2022 list. I've been recommending this a ton to people, especially these first 3 songs. I think I'm going to play Gin and Tonic, but I definitely recommend Necessary Evil and Anxiety. Have either of you guys had the chance to listen to this one yet?
No, it's on my list. On my big list.
Yeah, definitely go check this out. I think both of you guys will be into this band.
She was sour like gin and bitter like tonic. We mixed so well, but that don't mean we weren't toxic.
But Karina, I'm gonna kick it back to you. What do you got next?
I have Catch 22. And yeah, it's a classic. I think we all have it on our list somewhere. I recommend listening to Giving Up, Giving In, and Super Nothing for this one.
Yeah, I think we did all have this on our list. I think there might be a variation of it later on for Lewis, but yeah, this was a band we were gonna do like a full list on, mixed up with Streetlight. But Lewis, before we get to yours, anything to say about Keysby Nights? I know you're very fond of this one.
Yeah, I love this album too. It pretty much every track is fantastic. I am inclined to like the Streetlight re-recording of this album better. I think it just sounds better sonically, and that was their point. And so that's the one I tend to listen to. But I definitely own the original, that good old boring album art back in the day. We used to see them all the time. I think, though, I only got to see them once with the original lead singer, and then we used to see them a lot when they were touring for Alone in the Crowd. So they were great either way. Those first two albums are fantastic.
Yeah, agree. So why don't you roll us right into your next pick, another classic.
Yes, this one is the band most famous for being in Clueless. No, so it's 97's the Mighty Mighty Bosstones. Let's face it, aptly from Boston. But, Bosstones have never been one of my favorite bands, their whole discography. But this album really just kind of goes the whole way. I can throw this on and just let it string, either as background music or as sing-along music. I think the one that I probably just picked the impression that I get because it's the most iconic. It's probably one of the biggest ska punk songs of all time, right? So, but any other song on here, another drinking song, let's face it, That Bug Bit Me, 1, 2, 8. I mean, every song on here is fantastic. So if you haven't actually given this whole album a chance and you're just chasing the singles, I would definitely give it another listen.
Yes, this was a great pick for sure. I mean, iconic. 115 million plays on the impression that I get. I have like a weird relationship with Bosstones too. I tend to like that album. I think Jackknife to a Swan, I think, is my favorite, which I feel like a lot of people sleep on. But anyway, it's not going to be on my list. What is my next pick? And it's kind of weird because we spend a lot of time on this channel shitting on compilation albums. But for me, this is the Aquabats Myths, Legends, and Other Amazing Adventures Volume 2. I think this is the best Aquabats album, and I don't even think it's close. Like, you've got the 1-2 punch of Pool Party and Pizza Day, like some of their most recognizable songs. When we saw them a few months ago, they played both of those songs. So I don't think we're alone in thinking that. And then later on down the album, you've got I Fell Asleep on My Arm, which is goofy. Like it pokes fun at like Kid Rock and Korn, a lot of those bands from that era. But overall, like a different spin on ska song. Like it mixes in a lot of elements from nu metal, like as a joke, but it works. But we have like a bunch of memories of this album back in the day. Lots of good times. Either of you guys have anything to share about this album? I know it's pretty well known, but I'm putting it on there anyway.
I actually had it on my list too. It was one of the albums I ended up with 12 albums because I apparently I don't know how to count after 3 hours of sleep, so I had 2 extra. So actually this one got removed. Otherwise, yeah, it would have been my number 10.
Nice.
My thoughts on this. This is by far my favorite Aquabats album as well. I think if Shark Fighter was on here, I also would have made this like into my top 10 just because I really like that song as well. But yeah, this was like an anthem of ours all through high school. So it was one of the strangest albums. And, even though I went to the concert and got COVID a couple months ago, I still have fond memories of it. So.
Monday hot dog, Tuesday taco, Wednesday hamburgers and chocolate milk, Thursday sloppy joes and burritos in a bag.
All right, Karina, what do you got next? What's your pick?
I took something. Okay, this one I'll give a backstory to. I went to a record shop when I was on my first maternity leave, and I found not this record, but I found another one he did. And ever since I've been hooked, and it's Laurel Aitken with Scott with Laurel. And it's from 1965 or 66. I can't remember, but it's so good. I have so much love for the man. I mean, his music is different. And my recommended numbers are Coconut Woman and Propaganda.
So, Karina, when you sent this over to me, the first thing that popped out to me was how massive this guy's discography is. Like, when I was looking for this song, There is so many songs on. Like, look at this.
I know.
This guy, like, I've never heard of him. I'll be completely honest, but he's got to be like one of the most prolific ska musicians of all time. But I did listen to it. It's definitely interesting.
Oh, it is.
But Lewis, have you ever heard of this guy?
No, I usually just do ska with myself, so I haven't. No, I've never heard of it. I'm sure it's good.
All right, so Lewis, I'll let you get into your next one here.
All right.
So yeah, just take it in, and then I'll put my 2 cents in because I have stuff to say.
Yeah, I mean, come on. I mean, this is hella rocky, right? 98. I mean, I think there could be some debate, but for my money, it is the best Less Than Jake album. I distinctly remember bringing in crappy CDs that I had bought, like FYE. They used to trade in CD values, and then you get value to buy store credit. And I remember this being one, and I just was like, oh, this is a pretty fun album art. I was vaguely familiar with them. So, yes, this has become a standard forever. I think peak level Less Than Jake in the late 90s. So, I mean, any song on here, I think I recommended The Great American Sharpshooter. There's obviously a lot more ska-oriented ones. That's always my favorite. But I know, John, you're a big Nervous in the Alley fan, right?
Yep.
So, but a lot of these songs, and then, of course, All My Best Friends Are Metalheads is another classic off this. So, John, what do you got to say about this one?
Yeah, so, I mean, I had this on my best albums ever video. So, I let Lewis have it here, but I just wanted to say that Less Than Jake is in my top 3 bands of all time. I could have easily had my entire list be Less Than Jake, but I gave this one to Lewis, but just know this would be number 1 for me, and like Anthem would be number 2, and Losing Streak number 3. Like my whole list could easily be Less Than Jake, but we have a whole video on them too. You could check that out if you're interested in my thoughts. But Karina, anything to say about this one?
I mean, this is also my favorite Less Than Jake album. I mean, my first Less Than Jake song was All My Friends Are Metalheads. I'm young, remember this. So my music taste started evolving 15 years ago. But yeah, this is such a good album. Oh man.
Yeah. It's killer, and it's a hard one to follow up. So I picked a heavy hitter for me too. I'm going Abracadabra, Make Yourself at Home. These guys are from Brazil. This was in my top 5 albums of last year. This is another newer pick for me. But these guys, they have 2 albums out. The other one is probably in my top 10, 15 ska records too. But I'm going this one. I think this is like perfect. I'll probably say this with like every band just because how I feel about Less Than Jake. But if you're a fan of like Anthem or B is for B-sides, Less Than Jake, this is like a great album to get into. Like my song picks are going to be Bunkers, Not Going Back. I think I'm going to play Not Going Back. I'm trying to think what else I could say. It's like a near perfect record. It was top 5 last year for fans of Less Than Jake. Either of you guys, I mean, I don't know, Lewis, I don't know if you've heard them before, or Karina.
I've never heard them, but I love that band name.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
I love a good play on words, man. So I'm good.
I guess I feel alive when he hurts me, and it doesn't matter, I'm not going back.
All right. Well, Karina, what do you got next? You got another newer pick?
Boom. Yeah, I have Kill Lincoln, which they actually did a split with Less Than Jake in 2001, I want to say. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the album's called Can't Complain. And my recommended songs are Womb Envy and Confession Obsession. I think these guys are gotta be huge. They're really, really good. And if you're in England, they are playing at Manchester Punk Festival. Just some free PR for one of the best festivals there is out there. They're going to be playing a Manchester Punk Festival in April.
Yeah, you could see. I didn't realize how many songs I had saved from this, but I really like this record too. And this is Matt's favorite newer ska punk band too. Lewis, what do you think? You a fan of Kill Lincoln?
Yeah.
Heard these guys?
I do like. Yeah, I have heard Kill Lincoln, and I actually, once you forced me to get Spotify, that was a newer band that I did get into, and that's a good point for me to just tell the backstory because I'm like a dinosaur, folks, so I don't listen to a lot of new stuff, so I can't give the new bands as much cred here. So forgive my old taste, but Kill Lincoln is definitely one I've heard of. So.
Can we really trust each other and ourselves? Can we make a world that's better off than the one that we're sold and the one that we're sold?
Yeah, guy Lewis is still one of those people who I like for the last decade he has all of his songs actually saved to his phone. He's right. I just forced him to get Spotify like this year. So he's still supporting physical music. He's still supporting paying for the band. So points to him there. But why don't you take us into your next one here?
Sorry, broke up a little bit there. But for my fifth pick, I'm going to go back and pick Keysby Nights and the version of it by Streetlight, as we said. Don't really have much else to add here. One other song I would mention, it's my pick, is On and On and On. I think that might be one of my personal favorites from the album. And obviously, we got Dear Sergio, but just a great album. That it was so nice we picked it twice on this list. So all good.
Run the music and don't play it on and on and on. So what's my temper on the show till life goes on?
Yeah, I gave you on the list. I gave you a split of both since I knew that I didn't know which one you picked, so I just did that just to be safe. But
I like that.
Yeah.
So I'll take us into my pick. I don't know if I did this. I think I did this as one of my classics because Sub's another band that's been around for like 25 years or so, but this is a newer album by them. I'm gonna pick To This Beat from 2009. Sub is from Montreal. If you're not familiar with them, they've got a couple of really good records. I would recommend this one and then the one before it, The Motions. My favorite song on here is The Black Hand, which almost borders on Ska-core, which is different for these guys. They've always been like more of a melodic ska band, but this one is definitely their heaviest album, in my opinion. But there's still some traditional ska punk songs on here, like Looking Down and Can't Hardly Wait. You got Fuhrer Bunker, which is just like a fast punk song. Overall, yeah, one of my favorite ska punk records. I'll say this for every one I do because that's obviously the name of the episode. But I Love MTL is like a reggae style song, if that's your thing. Fun pop punk chorus. Either of you guys have anything to add about this? Sub, they've got a ton of great albums, but we didn't talk about them before.
I've never heard of them, so this is actually really, really nice. So thank you for that one.
Of course. Yeah, definitely go check it out. So, Karina, what do you got next for us?
A band called Faintest Idea with the album Increasing Minimum Wage. And before I get into it, I'll just do my recommendations now, which is Circling the Drain and Echo Chamber. But I think this album is so good. It's rough, but Circling the Drain's opener it's probably one of the best openers I've heard to a ska album ever.
Damn, that's high praise. This one is new to me. I think I've heard of these guys, but I don't know if I've ever listened to this album before. Lewis,
Yeah.
do you have any?
I've never heard of it. I mean, I'm going to go ahead and give it a review. It's a solid band with a solid album.
There you go. All right.
On a Rock Freak scale, what do you give it out of 10?
8.5 skulls out of 10.
The scales remain set. Every story has two sides, and I'll paint the picture of the other half.
There you go. All right. Lewis, what do you got next for us? I don't know if I got the order right here, actually. So let me know, and then I'll put it up on the screen.
That's fine. We're getting heavier now. We're ditching the horns, and there's still some horns here, but it definitely gets a little more feisty. And I'm picking 1997's Link 80, 17 Reasons. mentioned this one on the Off the Radar one just because, it's just kind of a band you don't hear talked about a ton anymore. And I mean, they haven't been a band for a long time now, but oh my God, is this album good? It's still good. It's raw. It's unfiltered, pure energy. Nick Traina's vocals are fantastic. I don't know. It's like Minor Threat with horns. I love it. Verbal Kint is obviously the standout. I think it was probably the most famous song off here. Judging by the views, I would say for the listens, I would say for sure. But every other song on here, the first three are amazing. Nothing Left, Enough, but Pretty Girls. I mean, then it just keeps going and going. So yeah, I can't say enough about it. We already talked about it in one episode. Fantastic album.
Yeah, this is a killer record, one that we listened to like a ton growing up. Karina, did these guys were they ever popular at all over there? They were pretty big, like back in the late 90s, early 2000s here. Did they make it over there?
I don't think they did. They might have. Remember, I'm 30 and I hang out with people that are like 36 plus, 33 plus. So I might have to ask my friends over at Rock Freaks if they've heard of these guys. They probably have, and I'm just dumb. So
all right. Well, I'm putting this record here intentionally. I wanted them to follow up Blink-80 because for my money right now, like when bands do Ska-core, there's not a lot of bands that do it better than Joystick, especially the songs I'm going to pick out here. Retcon, Detonate, 76, 75. Those are my favorite tracks on here, and they're all in that Ska-core vein. But like, if you guys don't know, these guys are from New Orleans. This was another one in my top 10 of 2021 last year. Newer band, just doing that Ska-core sound better than anyone right now. So have either of you guys heard of them before, or is this going to be something new for you?
I know Joystick is, and I like this album too. This probably, if I was picking newer bands, this probably would have been one of them. But I kind of just stuck with what I really felt inside my heart. But yeah, they're very good.
Yeah, this is the album I've recommended most. Like over the last 2 years, like when people DM me asking for bands, like I always push this on them because I think more people need to hear this. But Karina, have you heard this at all?
I have, yes. It's good, but it wasn't one of those. Yeah, it probably was last year because it was a bit of a slow year for music. It probably did enter my top 10, but yeah, it's not entering my top 10 list.
Listen to this message if you want to clean the records. You can do me a progression in the top of that.
All right, so what is entering your top 10 list?
Well, we have Real Big Fish now with Turn Off the Radio. Of course, I love that one. And it wasn't my S tier last weekend. I'm pretty sure it was. I might have spaced. But I do like this album. I do enjoy Beer and Sellout. I do think it's some of my the songs I take out when I have a party in the ska business.
I could be wrong, but I think Cheer Up was your S tier.
Yeah, it probably was. But I was actually sitting listening. Yeah, it was. I'm sitting with the list right now, but I was actually thinking about it, and I liked Lewis's like how he put his bands into categories, and I went like, which album have I played most at parties? And it's probably been Turn Off the Radio. And it was one of those, yeah, I really like this one when I'm in the mood to party. It's probably a pregame album for me, and that's why it got on the list and not Cheer Up.
So during the Real Big Fish tier list, you mentioned this was a dirty album. You didn't explain why. Are you going to shed some light on it here for us?
I think it was dirty because when I started listening to it, I was young and just getting, into boys, and it was one of those let's go, I've heard of this band, let's go listen to them. So for me, I always like have this dirty recollection, sorry guys, of making out on a couch with a guy and this album. Yeah,
I was just gonna say, I always used to make love to the beat in Suburban Rhythm. So
No, I'll stop myself. We have already had enough dirty talk from my side today.
Sell out with me, oh yeah, sell out with me tonight.
All right. Well, speaking of getting dirty, and Lewis, I know that you've had your share of
There it is.
hookups to this record.
Oh yeah, this one's a real lady killer. Here it is, 1999's "No Gods, No Managers" by Choking Victim. This would be in my top 10 albums of all time. It is one of my favorites. And we're definitely getting into the real hard side of ska with this one, because some of these songs are unrecognizable and of what the band would become later, especially with Leftover Crack. But oh my God, I love this album. I think this was kind of like an album for me that was really like evolutionary, or like just kind of, I heard this and it just like kind of opened me up to like trying a lot of different bands, especially when this came out in the early 2000s, like just a lot of stuff I was never familiar with. So back behind my shoulder here is actually the poster that inspired the band name that they named the band after, with the logos and stuff. So still a super important album for me. And of course, you got to recommend 500 Channels. It's their most well-known song, but I'm a big fan of Hate Your State as well, in addition to, Suicide and pretty much everything else from A to Z on this one. So A++ all across.
Yeah, and if you guys are interested, we did a whole video on the Leftover Crack family of bands. Lots of great songs to listen to with your loved ones, and we do see Lewis's poster beneath the garland. But I'll take us into my next pick here. This is another one. I don't know if I did it as a new band or an old band, because this album is 10 years old, but I think a lot of people may not be familiar with it. Karina, I think they're from your neck of the woods. Again, my European geography is terrible. They're from Switzerland. I don't know how close that is to you, but
I think that's like a 13-hour drive from
right.
Copenhagen. So
it's like going to like Indiana, I guess, John.
Yeah.
All right. So scratch that. Maybe not from your neck of the woods, but I still want to get into, this is Rutin's State of Flux from 2013. And this is one of the few albums for me, especially ska albums, that on first listen, I am completely hooked. So I think that if you're a fan of like late 90s Mighty Mighty Boss Tones, you're going to be right at home with this album, especially like the song Soulmates. That's the clip I'm going to play. Like, definitely go check out this song. Only 5,000 plays, but definitely worth a listen. Then you got Lisa Red Shoes down here. Is probably their biggest song. But yeah, guys, this is a killer album. One of the most underrated. It would be great for Off the Radar. One of the most off the radar, underrated albums that I've ever heard. I've been hooked on it since like 2015. Either of you guys, anything to say about this album?
Not a huge fan of the art. Sorry, I'm not a huge fan of the album art. So 2.5 skulls out of 10 on this one.
The production could. Oh no, I'm kidding. Thanks for showing it. Always nice with the sparring.
All right, Karina, you've got another big band coming up here, another huge album. So why don't you take us into it?
We spoke about this band, and we both agreed, like, do we put it on? Like, Goldfinger is ska, and that's why I put it on, because I love this album, and I just looked at my recommendations and I went, you know what, we're not being dirty anymore. But yeah, my recommendations from this album is Here in Your Bedroom and Anxiety. I'm gonna try not to be dirty for the last two.
Okay, but yeah,
but this is a good album. I'm not. They did a re-recording with all kinds of big artists, and if I recall, they re-recorded in Here in Your Bedroom with Avril Lavigne last year or this year. And guys, that's not good. That was a mistake. Shame. The original version is
Really striking when the iron's hot there with Avril Lavigne getting on that track.
Yeah, I mean, what more can you say about this album? For sure, this is like a landmark ska album. But yeah, we did say like, because I think like once Open Your Eyes came out, like Goldfinger was really not a ska band anymore. Like, it's a band I definitely want to do a tier list one of these days, because there's so many, awesome songs on here. This easily could have been on my list. Like, any of the first like 3 records could have been on my list. Big fan of these guys. But Lewis, anything to say about the self-titled?
Oh, this is a great album as well. I don't know about you though. Are you still haunted by that? Like when they used to put the guy who put the Twinkie in his ass on stage.
Oh yeah, that's a Darren, right? Yeah.
I have that still as a memory every time I think of Goldfinger. I mean, it was just like I just came here for a music show, guys. Like.
All right, what do you got next for us, Lewis? It looks like another seminal band. So take us into.
Oh yeah, all right. We covered this one as well recently in a tier list, but we've been covering a lot of good bands. So, 1996 is Destruction by definition. My S tier, Suicide Machines, the album I would rank as the best all-around Suicide Machines album, maybe in addition to Revolution Spring as well. Like kind of getting all the flavors of what the Suicide Machines can do in one record. Although I love a lot, as you can tell by that biased list I have, I love most of the Suicide Machines stuff. But I think I first got into the Suicide Machines from Tony Hawk, probably, maybe, or a sampler before that. So really like 99 maybe. But this album still holds up. Any one of these can be the pick here. I think I picked Hey because it's kind of like in the middle there. Is fantastic, but recommend anything. Break the Glass, No Face, Real You. I mean, just they all keep coming. So great album. Recommend.
Yeah, I'll just say it. I was really surprised when you picked Hey as your single.
Yeah.
That's a song I haven't spent a lot of time with.
I think about it all the time. I don't know why. I love that song. And I feel like I picked a lot of obvious ones otherwise. So,
all right, we'll take it. The deep cuts are always good. But I'm gonna go into my next pick, another newer band from the UK. This is Call Me Malcolm, Me, Myself, and Someone Else from 2020. Karina, you're a lyrics person, and I feel like this is a great album if you like to delve into the lyrics. Like, there's a lot of deep personal stuff, honest stuff, deals a lot with mental health issues. Came out like mid-pandemic, so I think a lot of people really related to this album. But I'm going to say this again for like the 10th time. One of the best, not only ska-punk albums, one of my favorite albums of the last like 5 to 10 years. Like, you could see all the tracks I have pinned on here. This was the album I struggled with picking a single the most for the playlist. I like stylistically, I'd say this is kind of like the RX Bandits, like halfway between Here and There era. But like, guys, if you have not heard this album and you listen to ska punk, you listen to like that third wave, definitely go check this out. Absolute killer album from front to back. Karina, you look like you had something to say about this. What do you think of this record?
I really love this record, but it first became. As you said, it was released during the pandemic, but for me, it was like more relatable a year later because we kept going back and forth with the lockdowns. But it was so nice to see such a different side of ska with how personal they touched on the mental health issues that we all face. But that album is so good, and the band's so good too.
I know.
Oh wow.
Even like, so when I first got it, I was like, oh, this isn't as good as the last record. Because that last one is even really like tough to beat too. But this one, the more I listened to it, I was like, damn, like I'm just like captivated by like everything happening and going on here. Great storytelling. Lewis, have you heard this one at all? Call Me Malcolm.
I've heard some of the songs on the shuffle, and this was a band that I had saved to dive deeper into. So if this is the recommendation for the one to really get into, I'm definitely going to check it out. I like them. That's kind of how I found Kill Lincoln, through my newfangled thing called Spotify.
I know I said I'm fit, but I'm still beaten.
All right. Well, from 2020, we're going all the way back in time, Karina, for your pick here. We're going back to 1988. Why don't you take us through your next one?
Fishbone. I don't know. Okay, I'll just say it. I'm old at heart. Like when it comes to music, I love old music, like music that was released before I was born or during my childhood. And Fishbone is one of these bands that I grew up in in a pub environment. So we had a lot of ska music playing and punk music playing. So I remember hearing Fishbone, and for me, this was one of the moments where I really started to listen to lyrics. And my recommendations for this album is actually Ma and Pa and Deep Inside. I think these are really, really good numbers and for a really good album. And more free promotion for a festival. They're playing in Copenhagen at Copenhagen in June. We're very lucky to get them. In my opinion,
they're still kicking these guys. They're almost as old as Lewis and I. 1988. Yeah, I've never listened to this record before. It's a band that like I've been meaning to like at least be familiar with. I don't think I know any of their songs. Lewis, have you heard of these guys?
Yeah, I know Fishbone, but I don't know if I've ever listened to a full album through. But back, I thought you said you were done with the dirty here, and then you pick a song called Deep Inside. I mean, come on. I mean, take it easy.
No.
Yeah. Taking a page out of Third Eye Blind's book.
Yeah, I know, right?
Hey, my mom, what the hell is wrong with y'all?
I knew that was going to be a comment. I just went like, no, I'm not going to say anything.
All right, well, we'll stay on the romance. We know Lewis has been picking the like romantic.
Yeah.
Romantic.
This is another one that I met one of my loves to is Against All Authority, 24-Hour Roadside Resistance. Now, I always feel like AAA was one of those bands that didn't get a ton. Like, people knew they were, but they weren't super big because there was just so many good ska bands at the time. But my God, is this a good album? And going back to like strong lyrics, like I think they have some of the best lyrics, especially on this album, like dealing with mental health, like your future, your place in the world. And I think that's kind of been their whole thing the whole time as a band. I don't remember actually which song I picked on here. I think I picked on Weak Inside because of that reason. But man, every song on here is good. 24-Hour Roadside, Nothing to Lose, I think is one of the more famous ones on this album. But I don't know, John, I know you like Against All Authority too. What are your thoughts on this album?
Yeah, and honestly, like you and Matt always were talking about these guys, and I never I listened like song here, song there, but like going back when you recommended this, I was like, let me give it a spin. You could see like I don't have any songs pinned. It's something I need to listen to more. Like I know these guys are good, and I wanted to do like a Hopeless Records tier list or draft one of these days. This would be one of my high picks for sure. Karina, did you ever get into these guys?
No, I didn't. Actually, I don't. Oh, this is going to make me so unpopular. I don't even think I heard about them before you guys. So I'm just going to add I just think I'm going to add them to my list, my pile of bands that I have to listen to before 2022 ends. I'm busy.
Definitely check it out. They only have like 3 or 4 records, but that one's gonna be your clear starting point.
I'm feeling empty as I struggle with my thoughts each day. Just a drone who contributes to his own decay.
But I've got a heavy hitter here, at least for us. So I'm gonna do the Mad Caddies, Just One More from 2003, and this came out the year Lewis and I graduated high school. So I have a ton of memories about like that summer going to Seaside Heights. This was our road trip album. Just like the way it starts off, you got like that slow banger, Drinking for 11. And they pick it up with like a Ska-core track down here. You got Silence, which I think was the single for it. My personal favorite song on here has always been Leaving. I don't know, something about this song just hits me the right way. But I mean, Rockupation is decent. Then you got Riot, fast punk song. But just like one of the more underrated bands in the ska punk scene. Like they're definitely big, but they're not talked about like with the big like heavy hitters like the Less Than Jake and your Real Big Fish. But in my opinion, like they deserve a spot up there. This is like a fantastic album. And Lewis, I know this one was potentially going to be on your list. What are your thoughts about it?
Yeah, this would have made my list probably if I had one more spot, or if I saw you hadn't picked it yet, it might actually take one of those spots. This is an all-timer for me too. And honestly, the follow-up album to this one is fantastic. Anything with Mad Caddies. What is that one called? Keep It Going. That one's really good. Yeah. And then you could easily pick that one to be a top 10. And then their cover album is amazing too. So the Mad Caddies definitely have earned their spot in the pantheon of like ska legends here for me.
Dude, that version of She is like untouchable. I love that version.
Who would have thought you could cover and they said nation states were a good idea as a ska song. And you know me, I'm a sucker for propaganda, so it's good stuff. So
Wanna go there, and I'm not scared. Our time's just begun.
All right, Karina, anything to say about Mad Caddies, or you want to take us right into your last pick?
I'll just say this. I agree. They're so underrated, but they're so good. I do enjoy them a lot. But let's move into my last one, which is Madness, another album that was released before I was born. This just says what kind of house I grew up in. But my recommendations are, and yes, this is going to be so sexualized again, House of Fun and Our House. Actually, and Cardiac Arrest too. But I really like the horns on this album, and I really like how silly it is most of the time. It's one of my it's background music albums, but it's just so good. And I again grew up in the pub environment, so of course it's one of my favorite albums. I think it's all of ours that grew up in that kind of environment. We know it from heart. We can do the lyrics.
So when you said it was going to get dirty again, I was kind of hoping you were going to reference Blue Skinned Beast, because I thought that would be a hell of a story. but I've never listened to this one either. But Lewis, do you know this band, know this album? It's even older than we are, so I'm not sure.
I've never seen it. The album cover looks like a board game though. Like or an ad for one, like, Madness.
Yeah, it reminds me of like Kids in the Hall or like something like.
Oh yeah, that looks good. Yeah.
But
you guys have to check it out.
Definitely will check it out. I'm interested. The cover looks like I got the wrong cover here. It looks like, but the one on Spotify definitely looks like a great time. But Lewis, I'm gonna skip over you because I like your pick for the last one. And I'm going to take us into here, my final pick, which is another newish band. This is The Long Game, and I'm picking their 2018 album, Overstaying Our Welcome. When I found this band back in 2018, they were called Ska-Society. They subtly switched it on like all streaming sites. I don't know how they did it, but definitely big improvement in the band name category. Another band from the UK. I'm just going to put this out there. In my opinion, like nobody could really touch the UK ska punk scene right now. Like I could have done a whole list I could have done 10 bands from the UK. It's just like, it's just blossoming that much over there. But I think like if you missed this band or you haven't heard it, this album sounds like straight out of 1996. I hear a ton of like Mighty Mighty Boss Tones influence on it. They just like nailed like the upstroke 2 big chorus formula. And my picks for here, like I've got 6 or 7 pinned, but I think Step Back, Take a Look Around is the best song. That's going to be my pick, but just started straight from the beginning. No Hope for the Future is a great opener. Either you guys heard this one. I think these guys are a little under the radar, so not sure if I'm going to be turning you guys on to this one or if you've heard it. What do you think?
Sometimes I just have to step back and really take a look around and significant what's all the stuff you see.
I've never heard of it. I would have not liked the name Ska-Society either. I think that is the opposite problem of Abracadabra, which is clever, and Ska-Society makes me feel bad. So is a good improvement on their name.
All right. Well, Lewis, that we saved probably what a lot of people may think as the best for last, like probably one of the most influential ska punk albums of all time. So why don't you take us right into this one here?
Let's go into it. It's going to be Op Ivy 1987 Energy, and basically the compilation album that came out after that just kind of jammed everything together. But I mean, what can be said about this album that hasn't been said already? I mean, it is obviously super influential on every ska punk band that came after it. I mean, it's basically the Suicide Machines and all the band like in the mid 90s were basically trying to kind of continue this legacy that was kind of just petered out early in the 90s. And I would be really interested to see how heavy Op Ivy might have gotten as they got older, or if they kind of would have went into the realm of like what Kamen Rider did and slowed things down and went a little bit more up key. It's really interesting because you have such divergent folks in there. I mean, but then we wouldn't have Rancid and all these other great bands. But what's there to say? I picked Jaded because it happens to be my personal favorite song, but Sound System is a super great song. Knowledge is obviously one of the most famous. Unity is, that's the anthem of punk crowds everywhere, and people covering this song. But yeah, fantastic. I know, John, you love this album. What's there to say about Op Ivy?
Yeah, I still remember the day I got this album. I was actually in Ocean City, Maryland at like a hole in the wall CD store on the boardwalk, and the guy, I think I was like 14 or 15, he recommended this to me, and definitely never looked back from there. It's had like a huge impact on like the style of music I listened to, got me into bands like Link-80 and stuff that just kind of pushed me down like that ska punk trajectory. But Karina, over there in Denmark, how do they feel about this Op Ivy album?
Well, I love it. I do. I think it's on pretty much every playlist I have. Definitely Unity. I love that song. I don't know why. It just appealed to me from the first time I heard it. So yeah, I think actually they managed to break through here. I kind of hope they did. I'll pretend they did. I'll figure it out for us. They did for me though.
They were never super big in America when they were around, so
no.
Makes sense. So
yeah, so guys, this is our 30 albums here. We talked about 30 records in 49 minutes. I'm putting them all except for this Fiorillo that's like I couldn't find anywhere. It's gonna be on a playlist. I'll put a link down below. We're all working on one last ska video that is in very early stages of development. Hopefully we can get it out by around Christmas if it actually happens. But if not, we've got mess tiers coming up, a couple other tier lists coming up. Karina, what have you got going on over there at Rock Freak's Dying Scene? Anything interesting we should be checking out?
Interviews. Oh yeah. Interviews by the looks of it. Lots of reviews. And I mean, if there's any bands that have anything coming up or like wanna talk, I mean, come hit me up and I'll send you over to who I think would be great suit for you.
There you go. Bands always looking for press to get that little blue check, get their name out there. So hit up Karina if you're interested. Lewis, any album that just barely missed your list you want to shout out?
You know what I wanted to call out would be like honorable mentions, because I didn't feel like they kind of fit into the spirit of this, because they kind of like hit the gap. So I mentioned Sublime Self-Titled. I kind of feel like that album kind of transcends ska's, like so much everything. I think London Calling could have easily made this list because there's so many good ska tracks on that. I love that album, but I couldn't say it's a ska album. So that would have probably been on my list because it's one of my favorite albums of all time as well. But yeah, I mean, Out Come the Wolves as well would have been in that list. I mean, because it definitely has those elements, and yeah, I just didn't feel it kind of fit the spirit of what we were doing. But those would have been other picks for me.
All right, yeah. So we'll wrap it up here. My other pick would be Less Than Jake's last album, Silver Linings. I think a lot of people aren't talking about it, but it's a hell of a band, a hell of an album for a band that's been doing it for so long. If you haven't checked out the latest Less Than Jake album, definitely go do that. I think that was my number 2 or 3 album of 2020. So that's it. That's going to wrap up for today. If you like this video, make sure and leave a thumbs up, subscribe, all that nonsense. And we will see you next time.